Okay, so again, good afternoon. So today we're going to discuss the fourth week of our module for this quarter. And in this week, we are going to solve word problems involving angle of elevation and angle of depression. Okay? Now, in this module, so since last time we actually knew the trigonometric ratios, the definition of angle of elevation and depression. So this time, all we just have to do is to apply, okay? We're going to apply and use those trigonometric ratios to solve problems involving angles of elevation and depression, okay? Now, as I mentioned from the previous module, you have illustrated the angle of elevation and depression, right? So you still have any questions with the illustration? Okay, great. Now, we also have used trigonometric ratios to find the other parts of the triangle, correct? Yeah, so we use tangent, secant, sine, cosine to find the missing part of the right triangle, right? Now, in this topic or in this module, we will see how trigonometry is used for finding the heights and the distances of various objects without actually measuring them, okay? So for example, the height of a tower, mountain, building or tree, distance of a ship from a lighthouse, width of a river, example, the distance from a certain building to another building, okay? Now, it can be determined by the knowledge of the trigonometry, okay? So as I mentioned, the process of finding for the height and distances is the best example of applying trigonometry in real life situation. Okay? So we would explain this further in our lesson or topic in some examples. Okay? So as I mentioned, trigonometry is really, really useful. You unconsciously, you might not be knowing it, but anywhere, okay? Everywhere sa aton, we apply trigonometry. Especially that we, in the real life, use heights, distances. That's very important. Okay? Now, suppose you are on top of the mountain, looking down at a certain building. Okay? Now, how will you directly measure the height of the mountain? Okay? So that is basically one of the best examples where we apply trigonometry in real life. Okay? Now, what are the steps? Okay, so last time we already have tried to solve trigonometry, right? And the values of the missing parts of the triangle. Now, in solving for the word problems, we have the following steps. So first, you have to draw and label the diagram. That's very important, right? I asked you last time, before you solve something, try to make an illustration first for you to better understand and know as to what part or what side of the triangle are you actually looking at or anong ginasolve mo. Okay? So you have to draw and illustrate it. Number two, identify what is asked. Okay? You have to identify which one is actually needed. Okay? And step three, you have to use the appropriate trigonometric ratio. Okay? So as I mentioned last time, di ba lang, it's very important that you label it, that you know which of this are actually what you are looking for or kung ano man lang ina-solve mo for you to know man kung ano nga klase sa ratio ang imo gamiton. So, whether it's tangent, sine, or cosine. As I mentioned, we're just going to focus more, and I'd advise you to focus more on that three main trigonometric ratio. They're the basic. Okay? And also, step 4, you have to solve using the formula and then interpret the result. Okay? So that is the steps. Now, let's try to apply that steps. Example, a building is 16 meters high at a certain distance away from a building. Okay? So we have a first building here. The first building this building over here is 16 meters high. Okay? Alright? At a certain distance away from the building, an observer determines the angle of elevation to the top of it is 35 degrees. Okay? At a certain distance, there is an observer, and this observer determines that the angle of elevation on top of it, on top of the building, is 35 degrees. Now we're going to draw another line. So we have here angle of elevation, 35 degrees. Okay? Now, how far is the observer from the base of the building? This is our building. How far is the observer from the base of the building? So this is what we are looking for. Okay? We're looking for the distance of the observer from the building. Do you follow?
Yes.
Now, we already had our step 1. Okay? So this is the first step. You draw and label our illustration. Number 2, or step 2, identify what is asked in the problem. So what is asked in the problem?
Anong distance? Kailangan distance.
Distance of? We're looking for the distance of the building from the observer. Remember, we're talking about the observer, okay? So we have the observer and the building. So we are actually looking for the distance between them, okay? And we label this as x, okay? Now, step 3. Use the appropriate trigonometric ratio to solve the problem. Now, we have our tangent already, right? We have our tangent, which is 35 degrees. What are given? What are given? 16 meters. Is it adjacent or opposite side or hypotenuse? Opposite. Correct. Opposite side. Because this is our theta, right? This is our angle. Opposite the angle is 16 meters. So this is 16 meters. Our adjacent is x. Okay, so given that we have the angle, we have the opposite side, and the adjacent side is missing, what is the best trigonometric ratio to use to solve for x?
Tangent.
Tangent, correct. Very good. So we have tangent theta, which is 35 degrees, is equal to?
16 meters.
Yes, because tangent, again, as I mentioned, is opposite over adjacent. That is 16 over x. Okay? Now we have x tangent 35 is equal to 16. Now x is equal to 16 divided by tangent 35 degrees. Now what is the value of x? Anyone? What is the value of x? What is tangent 35? 22.85. So that is the distance. Okay. So we have here x is equal to 22.85 meters. Do you follow? Yes. Okay. So therefore, let's interpret the results. Hence, the observer is away from the building. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, therefore, the observer is 22.85 meters away from the building. Or you can say, therefore, the distance between the observer and the building is 22.85 meters. Okay? Any questions?
No.
Okay, that's good. Very well. So thank you, and that's all.